today's core KPI webinar, we're talking about annual technician turnover. This is our second to last one of the year, which is crazy. I've got my tornado sirens going off in the background for a wonderful test, so we are on time. Okay, as usual, if you have any questions or anything come up during the session, please feel free to ask them using the Q&A. You can also use that as a chat as well. We tend to listen to those as they come in. I will have a co-host. She just might be coming in a little bit later. We will see when she joins in. But that we will go ahead and get started right now. So I'm Aja Holiday. I am the Education and Training Manager at MaidCentral. Oh, are you guys echoing? Okay. All right, so only have one echo. Sorry about that, Rochelle. Hopefully that figures out in a second. I've only got one microphone running, so hopefully I don't have an echo in my office. Hopefully it's not by catching the tornado siren. Sorry, it's definitely distracting me in the background. That's the loudest it's been. I think they added another siren back there, but my tornado siren test is at the same time as these webinars every month, and it's incredibly entertaining to me. Anyways, so today we'll be talking about annual technician turnover. Before we get started, we always like to talk about some upcoming events. Our first upcoming event is our MCA Live back in Charleston. And that will be January 8th through 10th. And sorry about that. I see some chat questions coming in. Yes, the chat is disabled on webinars, so we just kind of use the Q&A as chat. But they are, so you can use this as chat, and I'll just kind of do this, and it should only be able to see me here for the webinar. MaidCentral Academy Live is a great event that we recommend for everybody who uses MaidCentral about, 60 to 90 days after you go live, or as an annual event for you guys to come back to, because it is a really good planning tool. We go over a lot. We come up with an action plan for everybody. Plus, it just helps reiterate some of the helpful features within MaidCentral that can help towards some of these strategic operations. Otherwise, and then there was another question. So yes, I will be there. This is one that is hosted by a large majority of our MaidCentral team. So Tom, myself, Alvin, Troy, and then we usually have at least one other member of our team there as well, just to meet everybody and to help out with things. But this is an event that sells out every time. So definitely sign up quickly so that we have enough seats for everybody. We have some people that have been coming that come to this multiple times, and we definitely recommend that. If you've come to this once, maybe a couple of years ago, definitely come again if you are interested in learning more. We change this event every single time that we do it. So we're constantly coming up with new ideas and new things to teach everybody. Plus the action plan is something that's really helpful to do on a recurring basis. It's just our way of kind of taking the core KPIs and building out what you're going to do in an ongoing what you're going to use ongoing to make really good business decisions. Our next event coming up is, there's Victoria.
Hi.
And I'm now joined by Victoria, who is our implementation supervisor. So she's helping me out today on this webinar. Our next event that's coming up, which Victoria and I will both be at, is the ISSA show, which is just in a couple of weeks. So if you're still on the fence about that, this is the time to make a decision on it. It is a fantastic event. Victoria, do you want to actually speak a little bit about your experience there last year?
Yeah, so last year it was amazing to meet the partners, one that we've already worked with, and partners who've signed up right there to ask their face-to-face questions. The talks were really amazing. The residential roundtables were a lot of fun, even for someone, who's working in the software side of it. So amazing experience, lots of networking. You can't have that time.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I mean, I think it's just one of those things to be able to work within the industry. We have our own residential pavilion that all of the residential kind of cleaning services and the services for the residential cleaning services are all kind of together. Plus, they have the education tracks, which are really great. Katie Hambright is going to be there, so we'll see you there. Definitely stop by our booth. We're really excited about this show. We've got some fun things planned. Um, this will be my third time attending, and I think it's just such a great networking opportunity, but also education. And then you can also just um, get to know what other people are doing and get to meet new people that are in the industry and kind of build up your support system. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into the annual technician turnover. So what's on the agenda today? Well, we'll talk about the core KPIs and what they are, as usual. We'll talk about annual technician turnover and why it's important. I think a lot of people are here because they struggle with this a little bit. And I think we all struggle with this at some point or another. So it's always good to have some tools in your back pocket on in terms of how to fix it. So then we'll do some talking about why it's important and then some strategies to drive it down, and some things that do drive annual technician turnover down, in addition to some tools and resources that we have available for you. We do have a section at the end for Q&A if there's anything that comes up that doesn't quite fit into the conversation, but we do tend to answer questions as they come up if you have not joined one of our core KPI webinars before. So what are the core KPIs? Well, MaidCentral has determined that there are 12 key performance indicators, KPIs, that can be best used to drive your business and your margins. For each of these 12 KPIs, there are some that we want to make bigger, which we call driving that up to get better outcomes, and some we want to make smaller, which we call driving it down to get to get better outcomes as well. How this is important is that if you know where you're doing not so great at in your KPIs, it gives you an indication of where to work on or what you need to work on. So if you're already doing really well on like your sales side, maybe we have some annual technician turnover on the other side that is making those sales efforts not getting as big of a result as we want to see. So really understanding those benchmarks and where the industry stands on these numbers can let you know where you have the most room for improvement, which just gives you a bullseye of this is where I'm going to see the most improvement in my business if I'm able to improve this number and get this closer to the industry average or above. So here are our 12 core KPIs. We had bill per cleaning, quotes per week, close rate per week, cleanings per month per home. I mean, per home per month, revenue per technician per day, rate increase, direct payroll percent to revenue, customer attrition, skipped clean rate, absentee rate, and now we're on technician turnover, and our last one of the year is operating expenses per month. So we have done a webinar for each of these. If you have missed any of these, you can find them on our website under resources. And um, uh, I think it's called past recordings under resources, past recordings, or resources, events and past recordings. You can find it there. And you'll just fill out a quick form and it gives you access to the list of all of our past recordings if you've missed any of these. And Amy is right. She says, do your rate increases. Definitely do your rate increases. Don't be afraid of them. They are your friend, even if they feel scary. um, Absolutely. So what is annual technician turnover? Well, at the base level, the technician turnover per year represents the percentage of cleaning staff who leave your company within a 1-year period. For a long time, we would figure out what our technician turnover was by how big the box of W-2s were at the beginning of the year. If it was a really, really gigantic box, your turnover was bad. If it was a small envelope, your turnover was good. But we have more ways of tracking this, particularly for MaidCentral users, where they can find this information a little bit more readily and a little bit more throughout the year instead of just waiting for that one time a year to get kind of some insight into how your technician turnover, or we're kind of in the middle of it where we can feel like, oh, well, we just had a whole lot of people leave and our turnover must be high. But not necessarily knowing what the exact number is kind of limiting. So our average range for MaidCentral users is about 114% to 202%. I would say industry average is closer to 200%. So I do believe that MaidCentral users are lower in the annual technician turnover percentage range. Um, I always say the goal is around 100%, that is a really good number. If you're below 100%, you are doing fantastic turnover wise. So really trying to keep, if you have 15 technicians in a year, only having 15 technicians leave throughout that year is kind of the goal. To calculate this, you'll take your staff lost during the year divided by your staff count at the beginning of the year and then multiply that by 100 to find out that percentage. If you want to annualize this, you can take your staff lost during a 12-month period, or sorry, a month period, a 30-day period, and multiply it by 12. And that can give you kind of a proxy if you have kind of a consistent turnover throughout the year. Otherwise, you could do like an average loss of technicians over the last couple of months and multiply that by 12 to get your an estimated annual loss off of that average. As always, we like to bring this back to the three stakeholders. So for all of our companies, we have three stakeholders: the company, our customers, and our technicians. It's very important that every decision that we make is a win-win-win, because if there's a loss on any one of these stakeholders, it turns into a lose-lose-lose situation. So we're really focusing on the technician side here, because when we're losing technicians, the company is losing, the customers are losing, and therefore all three stakeholders are just not doing well when we are seeing a lot of technician turnover. So to improve that, so the important part is improving that so that we can get a little bit more, um, so we can get better outcomes overall for all three stakeholders. David asked, should we include staff who don't make it out of training or those that don't show up on their first day in that 100 to 200%? I would include everybody who doesn't make it out of training, but I probably wouldn't include people who don't show up on their first day. Um, I still think having people that do show up but maybe don't make it out of training is still an indication of something in your training process or your hiring process that needs to be addressed, if that's what's spiking your number up. I think a lot of times people try to remove the bad things from their data, but that's not helping anybody. We want to make sure that we're looking at it consistently every time and we're taking all the information in. But if they never showed up, they never showed up. They were never on your employment list. But if you ever paid them, I would include them in your turnover stats. So, why is lowering your technician turnover important? I mean, beyond the reduction of whirlwind feeling like things are out of control, when we're low staff, there's a lot of other impacts that come out of having a high technician turnover or even just a constant technician turnover. First and foremost is our customer satisfaction and retention is affected by technician turnover, our recruitment and training costs, operational efficiency, employee morale, and company culture are both impacted and a direct result of your technician turnover. So this one kind of does both sides of it. It can impact your technician turnover, but it can also be impacted by your technician turnover. Your overall financial stability and profitability is impacted by this. Your brand reputation can be impacted by technician turnover, both from the customer side and your technician side. And then the overall impact on consistency and efficiency is very heavily impacted by technician turnover. So we're going to go through each one of these to kind of break down all the pieces that technician turnover impacts. So our first side is our customer satisfaction and retention. So we see the consistency in service gets really impacted by technician turnover. We're not able to have the same technicians or teams going to the same clients, and clients prefer consistency, even if we're not promising that or it's not necessarily part of our um like business brand. That consistency is something that clients crave. Um, it helps build trust when the same person is in their home, and in addition to that, we have some, benefits from increasing technician familiarity with homes when the same technicians are able to go to the same places. So, not only do they end up getting better service, they have a better trust in their technician. When we're able to send that same technician and we're having a lot of turnover, that just reduces the amount of technicians that we're able to send over and over again. This bleeds into the quality of service. Experienced technicians deliver higher quality of services. So if we're constantly churning all the technicians that have only been with us for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and there's just a constant churn of those people, we have one little pocket of experienced people, and then we've got a pocket of people who are never experienced, which just means that our quality of service is not consistent across the board, and we're not delivering that higher quality that the company kind of wants to deliver. Um, and the higher turnover means more hires with less experience. So you're just going to have a bigger pocket of technicians with less experience when your turnover is really high. And that makes us have a lot more to worry about as operators in terms of who can we send where and kind of diminishing our capacity to provide really good service to our customers when there's just this revolving door of technicians. Um, And then for the customer side, customer trust. Um, you know, customer trust takes time. And typically in those early days of a new customer and early days of a new technician, that's the most important part of building trust with customers. Um, frequent changes will weaken this trust. So frequent changes in technicians is creating kind of an unstable, unreliable team that customers really aren't able to depend on. Even if there is a section of the company that is reliable, the section of customers that are only seeing the unreliable side of the company are believe that the company is unreliable because they're not able to provide consistency with their technicians. So when you have a high technician turnover, you increase your customer loyalty, which will impact some of the other things that we'll talk about in a little bit as well. Um, one of the biggest parts of technician turnover is the expense part of it. Training is expensive. I think we can all look at our payroll percent to revenue when we're training and be able to tell how many people we were training, because our payroll percent to revenue bumps up by a couple percent points every single time we train somebody new. And a that like incurring that cost frequently if there's a high turnover. So reducing turnover would lower hiring expenses, including advertising, interviewing, and onboarding costs. You can decrease training time and costs as well. So um, new technicians need time and training to reach full productivity. And we'll talk about that in terms of how it impacts the financial side of the business as well, but reduce turnover to lower the money and time spent on training and increase so that you can increase focus on the strategic efforts. So your time and costs going into training are more than just it's the loss of what you could have also been spending that time on. So the time on, constantly having to do like onboarding or orientations and things like that over and over and over again for people who aren't sticking, means that that is time that is not being spent on strategic efforts like, I don't know, reducing technician turnover or or the other KPIs that you might be working on. So it's kind of a double hit when their technician turnover is really high. And I guess that goes kind of into the opportunity costs as well for the experience task for your experienced staff. Those people who are kind of overseeing training, it's taking away from their opportunities to do other activities. So either taking on more responsibility in the business of helping with sales efforts or marketing efforts and things like that, they're out training all the time. Um, so Victoria, did you have anything to add on this one?
I think I think the biggest one is kind of with just reiterating what you mentioned is it's not just the time and money spent on training, it's the loss of all of the other growth pieces that you could do. So don't get stuck in that revolving door because yeah, it's a double-edged sword, like you said.
Our top quartile number is below 100 and what was it? 14%. Yeah, 114% is the top quartile. Okay. So operational efficiency. This did not translate well. Operational efficiency. So close. So first thing is having an experienced workforce. A stable team is more experienced with internal processes. So the longer that you can keep kind of an experienced team, like the more of your team experienced, they're completing jobs faster, they're able to anticipate client needs, and they can troubleshoot issues with less guidance. For anybody who uses like a communal, conversation channel, you know that your people that are experienced are not the ones constantly asking you how to fix your vacuum. They know where to look at to fix those vacuums and to make those troubleshooting decisions on their own. Um, and it just makes that operational efficiency a little bit more productive. There's improved scheduling stability as well. You get technicians that can follow consistent routes and work with regular clients. There's a reduced need to adjust the schedule or shuffle jobs frequently to account for either inexperienced technicians or for people constantly turning over. And then there's just a better team dynamic. They're able to work better together. They have more trust in each other. Their communication and understanding of each other is a little bit higher. So there's just smoother operations and your team coordinates better. Um, and just like kind of with the troubleshooting issues, they're also able to um, just perform at a higher level when there's more experienced people working together. We had a question here. We would love to be able to see our company's quartiles again to see how we compare to the industry averages and other MC users. Come to MCA Live. Right now, that is the only place that we do quartiling directly for people. Eventually, we do hope to get that more in product, but for right now, and for the foreseeable future at least, I don't think we have plans to put that into product in the near future. Definitely the MCA Lives is the best place to get that. It doesn't change drastically. So if you've come before, those numbers are probably still helpful as far as what the top quartile is. Um, but we're working on trying to find better ways to get that out to people more often as well. But it is nice to know where you stand. All right. One of the biggest impacts as far as why technician turnover is important to focus on is your company culture and your employee morale. When technician turnover is high, it disrupts your team dynamics. We were talking about how, lower turnover makes your team more cohesive. Well, high turnover makes it really just a lot of disruption over and over again. Your teams aren't able to form very good bonds, and it leads to an environment where employees really aren't able to support each other and stay motivated because they don't know who they're working with because there's constantly new faces around.
I think it
Um,
also opens up a channel for gossip, right? If there's always people coming in and out, I think that's one of the biggest things too, is like it opens up the room for a lot of gossip, which we don't want, obviously.
exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of talking about so and so who used to work here that nobody really got to know, and it doesn't create a very positive working experience. in terms of who's talking about who. So the more positive things that you can kind of the more experienced people that you can kind of have around, um, the more the conversations can kind of be shifted away from the negatives of people constantly turning over. That's a good point. So, reducing burnout as well. Overworked, when turnover is high, we do tend to overwork our remaining staff. There's more work in either just there's work to be done and the same amount of work to be done with fewer technicians to do the work, or they're constantly training new hires, which also adds to the burnout. Burned out technicians are more likely to call out as well. So not only do we have technicians more likely to quit, but we also have technicians more likely to not show up, which is just constantly reducing our ability to be efficient and produce all of the work that needs to be produced throughout the day. So reducing turnover helps us reduce both absenteeism as well, because that burnout gets kind of uh, eliminated from the equation. Ooh, Mallory, that's a good question. I'm gonna leave that one there. We'll answer that one when I get into the strategies. Um, when technician turnover is lower, we can see increased engagement. So, because more people are getting to know each other, we're able to form better bonds and build better trust. There's higher engagement and commitment to the company, because they actually know who they're working with and who also is getting benefited from the work that they're providing. It encourages employees to invest more in their roles because they can see potential growth. They see the growth in the people who have been there longer than them. Whereas if everybody's only been there a couple of months, it's hard to see that potential growth or those potential roles that they could be filling as they stay with the company longer.
Customers also like to see happy technicians. It makes them happy.
Absolutely. When somebody walks into your house and they're grumpy, it's pretty obvious. So let's bring this down to the financial stability and profitability. So, um, as we mentioned, turnover is expensive. Training is expensive. So not only in time, but also financially. You have to pay out that money. And if they're not sticking, then that's just constantly, those are expenses that are constantly being incurred for people who aren't funneling those expenses back into the business in production. Um, And then our payroll percent to revenue is a direct indication of when we're training and if we're training a lot. And if that payroll percent to revenue is constantly 5, 6, 7% higher because we're training all the time, that will add up fast, very quickly. I think anybody who's had to train, you know, a third, I don't even know, like 4 people a week or something like that, or a quarter of their staff every single week just to stay staffed. Their payroll percent to revenue is killing them little by little every single week that they're running payroll. Um, this also impacts the consistency of our revenue. High turnover equals inconsistent service quality, which means that customers are more likely to cancel when they have inconsistent service quality. So we're not able to keep that consistent revenue in place. Maintaining a consistent team helps ensure service quality and customer satisfaction are where we want them to be, leading to a steady and predictable revenue stream. It also helps increase productivity. Experienced, stable teams are able to complete jobs faster with fewer errors, and higher productivity equals increased profitability per job. So we can see a lot of benefits by reducing technician turnover. And the last piece that I really want to talk about, as far as the importance of technician turnover, is our brand reputation. Um, there is a piece that kind of word of mouth helps with, as far as the reliability and trustworthiness is impacted by technician turnover. Um, Companies that are known to be stable and reliable are more likely to be referred by your current customers. It helps attract both customers and employees that are looking for a dependable company. So sticking to those, paying attention to the turnover numbers and really knowing when those numbers are spiking and how to mitigate that and what are the pieces that are impacting this is all part of the process. And then being an employer of choice. A company with lower turnover is often seen as an attractive place to work. It helps, there's the word of mouth, not only on the customer side, but on the employee side of employees trying to bring in other employees to work with them because they want to work with their friends and they like where they work. Um, that helps build a reputation as an desirable employer that helps bring in high quality applicants. So that helps further reduce that turnover and creates kind of a positive feedback loop of, okay, well, our current technicians are happy with their job. They're telling other people that they're happy with their job, who are then coming in and creating and, starting to work with the company who are also happy in their job. And it just creates this nice, wonderful loop of being an employer of choice and also reducing turnover each time that you're able to hire somebody that believes that and is able to see um the benefits of working, excuse me, of working for your company. So now it's important, right? It affects all aspects of the business, the operations, our customer happiness, our technician happiness, our financials, how our company is perceived are all impacted by technician turnover. So how are we going to improve this? How do we lower technician turnover? Because it's a red number, we want to drive that number down. There's a couple of really specific things that we want to focus on. Um, Competitive compensation, career growth and opportunities, consistent scheduling, regular feedback and recognition, and improved work-life balance. And in all of these, there's an element that the tools that you are using can help with. So as a MaidCentral webinar, we're going to talk a little bit about how MaidCentral can help with these things in addition to activities outside of MaidCentral. In competitive compensation, we're talking about offering fair wages, ensuring technicians are paid fairly, and considering implementing performance-based bonuses to reward high-quality work. So anytime that we're talking about bonuses or incentives for working, we want to think about it in a way that is promoting the good behavior, not oh no, what was the word I was looking for? Not reducing a bad behavior. Okay. So instead of doing it off of, you know, how many complaints you get, instead of having it be like 0 complaints that you're getting, we want it to be a number of compliments that you're getting. You want to promote a good behavior instead of there's a specific word that I'm looking for and it just is not coming to my brain. Um dis something. I can't find
Disciplining,
it. It
punishing.
kind of. That's along the right path, but it's not quite what I'm looking for. It's on the right path. Um oh man, it's a good word too. It'll come back to me, I'm sure. And then you also want to build a payroll process that builds trust with technicians so that they can be confident that they are being compensated fairly for their work. Punitive, it's dis something. It's like dis. Thanks, guys. I appreciate all your help, but unfortunately, I don't think it's going to come to me. Those are all on the right path of the you guys are getting what I'm trying to say. I'm going to be mad that I can't think of this darn word, but it'll come to me tonight right before I fall asleep and I'll yell it out and nobody will know that I eventually remembered the word. But um, for now, you guys understand what I'm trying to say. But discipline, penalize, punitive, you don't want to make any incentive programs against reducing those things. You want to make incentive programs about promoting good behavior. So on the fair wages side, as far as a payroll process, something that MaidCentral really does that helps with this is showing the payroll reports to technicians, being able to see how much they're making per job, how much they made per the week, and where their tips and other benefits are coming from. I think that's all a real helpful way of, it might be discourage. Discourage might be the word. Or dissuade. Ooh, dissuade might have been the word. Dissuade. I think it's dissuade. Dissuade was the word. Yep, Robin, you got it.
Woohoo!
Thank you. Instead of dissuading them. Thank you. That is exactly the word I was looking for. That's hilarious. Um, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Okay. So yes, having some sort of way of presenting your payroll information to your technicians that highlights the positives that they're receiving. So that could be tips, that could just be their base pay, but any bonus programs that you have, you want to make sure that they're able to see how much they made and where they made it. Um, that's something that MaidCentral can help with, and I think that that's a very beneficial side of kind of reducing turnover, is that transparency of how they're being paid. In addition to that, we've got benefits and incentives of offering like health benefits, paid time off, retirement plans. These are becoming a lot more common in our industry. And it's a very, very attractive thing for our cleaning technicians because there are very few industries where you're typically working daytime hours and able to receive these kinds of benefits and pay. It is hard physical work, but it is something that can be very attractive to incoming technicians. And it just makes them feel like they're valued, which helps reduce technician turnover. And also, they're just not able to get the same benefits and the same kind of working environment that they're able to receive in our industry. So, finding really good ways, MaidCentral really helps you track productivity and consistency and feedback scores. That makes it really easy to implement performance-based bonuses that can help boost motivation, encourage technicians to stay longer with the company. He said some big things that make their team happy is the ability to have days off when requested. I didn't even have anything in here about time off requests, but PTO, even outside of PTO, having a really streamlined way of requesting time off and knowing when their time off is and when they're scheduled, I think that that's a really beneficial um, piece to think about as well. Is, you know, how much of their time is their time, and how do they take that time of theirs? The next piece is employee engagement and growth. So, career development, offering training, professional development opportunities, and clear career progression pathways. That wasn't supposed to be a tongue twister, but it really was. I love walking into businesses that show uh that have like a career ladder on their wall. I think that those are so helpful in letting their technician know, okay, you go from trainee to a team member, and then you can become a team lead or a field lead, and then maybe a trainer and a field supervisor, and on and on and on, where we can kind of really break down all of the pieces of how much you can make in that position, what your PTO might look like in that position, if there's any other different training responsibilities that come with that position. It just makes them feel like they're growing with the company, or that they have the ability to grow with the company, and they're more likely to stay motivated and engaged. What I think is really interesting is that not everybody will take advantage of those opportunities, but just knowing that they exist makes them feel more secure in their job. So if you don't have a really established career ladder, I do think that that can help a lot. Um, Also having them have some involvement in decisions. So engaging technicians in the decision-making process. And this doesn't have to be everything, but it could be about, when do we have our team meetings? How do we handle rotational items in the cleaning homes? Um, and then I said, especially regarding scheduling, their own schedules, helping them have some control over their schedules is a really, really big part for our cleaning technicians. They don't have a lot of control over their work, so giving them a little bit of extra control over their own schedules is super cool. And this could be as simple as, you cleaned for Miss Jones yesterday. She really liked you. Or, I see an opening on your schedule on Thursdays. Would you be good having this customer on your schedule on an ongoing basis? Absolutely. I liked cleaning their house. Their dog was really cute. It's a very small, easy conversation to have, but holy cow, does that give a lot of autonomy and kind of feeling control over their own workplace. Um, it just fosters a sense of ownership and responsibility in their work that they're not able to get in other places, I don't think, in other industries, that we have a lot more freedom to kind of allow that, where, yeah, we take the information first, but then we ask for their feedback on it. Um, and it doesn't have to be all technicians necessarily. It can just be, as they reach a certain level of technician tier, they get a little bit more say so in their schedule, something like that. It just helps build that growth opportunity for them. Some ways that MaidCentral helps with this. One of my favorite things to have, which I think this might come up again, maybe, I'm not sure, is our resources page. So in MaidCentral, there is a thing called the resources page where you can create a page on your website and direct the link in MaidCentral to that page, and you can put all of your training materials, your career ladder, everything in one place for your technicians to stay ahead of all the information that they need. Or maybe it's been a year since they were hired and they can't remember what the career opportunities are and they want to go find that information. It just gives them a little bit more self-serve options in terms of finding that information for themselves. Um, I Thank you, Keith. That was something I wanted to mention, um, was, the ability to see their homes they are cleaning the next day. I love having future jobs turned on in MaidCentral. I think that that is a massive part of giving employees some engagement with their schedule. I think a lot of people are afraid that, if a technician sees that they have a one-time job on Thursday, they're just gonna call out that day. Whereas in reality, what it kind of turns into is, well, they say they have a one-time job on Thursday. Now they have 2 days to mentally prepare for that one-time job on Thursday. It takes away a lot of that anxiety of the unknown, and instead of, like, waking up that morning and not necessarily being in the best mood and then seeing that you had a one-time job versus being able to prepare the night before knowing you have a one-time job that's gonna be bigger and maybe a little bit more physically consuming. I'm gonna go to bed early the night before because I know I have a one-time job and I'm not gonna be surprised by that next day. I think that that's really helpful. We had some questions on where to find the resource page. This is for the only people that can find a resource page are group admins, and that's gonna be under the company tab, and then there's a settings um, menu in there, and then you're gonna have logo or logos and UI, I believe it's called, is the tab that it's under, and there's a resources page link box there. Um, and that box is where you would put that resources page. So you would build a page on your website first and make it like hidden on your website. And then whatever that URL is, you'll put that URL on into MaidCentral, and that becomes a menu item for your technicians, which is just labeled as resource page. So in their menu item, they're going to show technician dashboard, my employee profile, and resources page. And to click on that, when they click on that, it'll take them to the page that you've created with whatever information you want to have available on it. All right. And Mallory, this will be where I'll answer your question after on this slide. Um, the next way to kind of reduce technician turnover is consistent scheduling and team assignments. So optimizing your schedule, having set up consistent schedules so that technicians are assigned to the same clients on regular intervals. We talked about the customers really liking consistency, but your technicians love it too, and maybe even more. They really love knowing that every other Tuesday I get to go see Mrs. Johnson's house, and they've got 3 cats and they're really lovely. The orange one's really funny and he does weird things. It just kind of creates a something to look forward to when they have houses that they really like to see, and also giving them time to mentally prepare um for houses that maybe they don't like to see as often. But again, it just gives them a lot of consistency in their work. It helps build routine. Technicians become more familiar with the homes. It strengthens that technician-client relationship, which just leads to better job satisfaction and retention. Let me see if I can pull up a good page. Oops. For the resources page, oops. For anybody who's having a hard time finding it, it's under company, settings, logo and UI, and it's this employee resources link here. So it's not in the general settings, it's under this partner settings. Okay. And then the other side of kind of scheduling and team assignments is zone-based scheduling. So having zones created for how you're scheduling so that technicians work within specific areas, particularly if you're using solos, um, color coding your teams in MaidCentral so that they match the location that the technician lives in, just reduces travel time, makes their days more predictable, and improves work-life balance by reducing time on the road. This also kind of leads into the gossip side. If you do work in teams, I call, windshield time is gossip time. So if you're working with teams of 2 or more, reducing that time on the road is also reducing the time that they're talking about other people. If you're having a drama problem, look at your drive times because drive times can be heavily impacting your drama problem. If they only have 3 minutes in the car, they only have 3 minutes to talk. So, reducing that time and using zone-based scheduling helps a lot with that. Now, this kind of helps with, for Mallory's question of what numbers do you look at to see when we need to hire? There's a couple of things that I like to look at. I actually look at the master schedule primarily. Um, when I'm looking down at the master schedule, if all of my teams are, over 50% full, it's time to hire that next new team. Once that new team is 50% full, it's time to hire the next new team. Um, that's usually my process of really looking at things. The other page that you could look at would be revenue production planning. Has an unused hours column. When that starts to get into the negatives without having other jobs scheduled on the day, so other one-time jobs and just kind of in your uh baseline scheduling of recurring homes, when those numbers, when your unused hours starts getting into the single digits before adding in one-time jobs and initial cleans, it's probably a good time to start hiring for a next technician. Olivia asked, when we have a technician assigned to a job consistently but call off or have planned time off, what is the best way to have that conversation with the client regarding sending in a backup technician, especially with a technician requirement? So if they have a technician requirement, I would absolutely call that customer and ask them their preference, where they can either skip that clean, reschedule to a time when that technician is back and has an opening available if they have one, or um, having a replacement technician and asking if there's any additional notes that they'd like that technician to have. That way you can also update the work order notes at the same time with any relevant information. I
Exactly what I
also
did.
yeah, there's also a couple of, I've heard of a couple of companies that also do like a, um, the technician has to work if they called off, and maybe they're at the end of their absences or something like that, that they can work a day that they weren't previously scheduled, like a weekend day or a day that they had planned time off, to clean for houses that they didn't clean on the day that they called out. So maybe they're sick on Tuesday, but are able to make up that day on Saturday. They would take their Tuesday houses on Saturday. If the customers are amenable to that option, which if they've had a really consistent technician and it's the option of having that technician just on a different day, they'll usually say yes. But that's kind of it involves a little bit more admin operations to institute that kind of process. Ooh, we are getting to the end. All right. Um, The last two pieces of improving technician turnover are regular feedback and recognition, and then work life balance. So, under regular feedback and recognition, we really want to talk about having recognition programs that are kind of outside of the incentive programs. So, simple gestures like employee of the month or team based incentives for, I don't even know, quality scores, scorecards received, uh, compliments received, anything like that, Google reviews, those are all great. Do you have any others that you can think of, Victoria, as far as recognition programs?
No, I mean, you hit the nail on the head.
Cool. I wasn't sure if I was missing any. Those are kind of the big ones that just and publicly recognizing them. So even if you work remotely, posting it in your group chat of, hey, Jessica got a Google review, or Jessica got 100% the last 3 weeks on her scorecards, something like that. Publicly recognizing them and creating an automated, not necessarily an automated process, but a recurring process around that of recognizing people. Um, I've had people do, like 5-star Fridays, where they go through all of the best 5-star comments that they got from the week and create like a thread of 5-star recognitions for people. Um, Creating a feedback loop with your technicians. So conducting regular check-ins with performance reviews and having them not only reviewing them, but having them review the company. Doing a two-way review where they get to say how things are going and give their opinion on things. That also helps give them a little bit more control on their um in their workplace, a little bit more, find a little bit more meaning in that, I guess. And then data-driven management. You wanna make sure you're paying attention to your turnover numbers. If you're using MaidCentral, two of the big reports that you can use for this are your turnover by week and turnover by month reports. The turnover by week report is really great because it really just shows you how many people you're gaining and losing on a weekly basis and what your monthly or your moving average is, either on a 3-month moving average or a 12-month moving average. You want those numbers to be going down either way. And if your 3-month moving average is higher than your 12, that means things are getting worse. So we kind of want to pay attention to it a little bit. Even if your 12 number still looks good, but your 3 number is higher, that means that we're going to start seeing that number peaking up a little bit. Olivia
Something
asked,
I wanted to
yeah,
add to the feedback loop, sorry, Aja, is if you
you're good.
do currently have high turnover, try to conduct exit interviews with those people and see if you can get opinions on why they didn't stay, why they didn't last. Was it the interview process? Try to also get feedback from them, get, a little bit of information before they kind of kick the door. That way you can make changes and hopefully use that to help drive that number down as well.
Yes, and something that I've seen done in the past is actually having that exit interview be anonymous, except for you can offer maybe like a $25 Amazon gift card or something like that where they have to add their email address in to get the gift card, and then you can know who the feedback came from. But that can be really helpful, and it kind of creates an incentive for them to actually finish that exit interview. But exit interviews, especially if you're having a turnover problem, create a Google form with exit interview questions, and send it to everybody who has turned over that you didn't fire outright in the last 6 months or something like that. too much there's no such thing as too much feedback in terms of exit interview information. And if you're having high turnover, no news does not mean good news. No news is bad news in that situation. Absolutely. Um, Olivia asked, how do other companies fill a new hire route? Pull jobs from veteran technicians, assign new clients only, or both? It can be a shock for clients to go from a veteran to a new hire. Quality can be quite different. I have an interesting philosophy on this. Um, and my process as far as filling up new hires is making new hires clean all new jobs. So they do all the initial cleans, they do all the move outs, they do all the hard work. It's kind of like everybody has to do their time in the trenches. Well, the trenches are move out cleans, initial cleans, and one-time jobs. And they, by completing those jobs, after they've completed training and they're up to quality expectations, by completing those jobs, I believe that customers, and anybody who's heard me speak on this before has heard this phrase many times. I believe that customers are like baby birds. They imprint on the first person that comes into their house and shows that they care. That does not have to be your most experienced technician. That can be your newest technician who's only been out of training for a week. That is okay. As long as they have been trained, they have the quality expectations of the company, and they care about their work, that customer will probably end up requesting that new technician, and that can start filling in their schedule. Um, Usually what I recommend doing is when somebody turns over, pulling apart their schedule and adding it to anybody else. And what's left over is the start of a new schedule for somebody new. And then they end up doing all the initial cleans to help fill in their schedule with customers who are requesting them. Um, it actually does not typically create burnout because as long as you set the expectation that they are, it's one, very dependent on the quality of their work, so that the quality of their work is the most important thing that they're thinking about, because if the quality of their work is high, then their schedule is going to fill out fast and they're not going to have to do that type of work forever, which is kind of the point, is that you want to get into the having a permanent recurring schedule that works the way that you want to. Wow, this is such a long webinar. I'm running out of time. Um Yes. As far as making an exit review interview anonymous on Google Form, you just need to turn off the requirement for an email
in the
and just
settings at the
creating an
top.
email in the settings. Yep. Victoria learned this week.
I was like, I just learned this too.
But speaking of burnout, we also want to think about work-life balance. So streamlining and automating scheduling processes so technicians do not have excessive paperwork or updates to deal with, reducing administrative burnout in technicians, which is just kind of like the constant, oh my gosh, I'm going here, and just kidding, I'm going over here, because everything's always changing. And then also just like if you're working still on paper for your technicians, please don't do that. Please try and find a digital way for your technicians to work, because it really does help streamline their processes as well. And then predictable hours. Ensuring technicians have predictable, stable hours whenever possible provides a sense of stability in their personal and professional lives. So this isn't necessarily that they can predict the end time of their day all the time, but that they can understand, you know, well, I know my recurring schedule Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Thursdays. Tuesdays and Fridays are a little bit more up in the air. That just, it kind of creates like again, days to look forward to, and knowing the expectations for their week. So just giving that stability as much as possible as they kind of gain the experience with the company. All of this really comes back to the culture of consistency. So technicians are in control of their absences and their quality. Customers control their skips and reschedules, and the company controls the culture and the communication. But all of these things together create kind of that culture of consistency altogether. We talked about some of these, but overall, these are the activities that drive technician turnover in MaidCentral. So tracking employee turnover with a couple of reports we talked about, the turnover by week and turnover by month report, master schedule, keeping that clean, turning on your tipping features. I didn't even talk about this, but tips as far as a piece of their income. That's extra income for them that doesn't come directly out of the company pocket, at least not entirely. Adding pictures and bios to their profiles so that they feel important and seen. Using employee campaigns to send out bulk messages to people to keep everybody up to date on changes. Um, Note reminders for birthdays and anniversaries so that you can remind somebody to acknowledge the birthdays or anniversaries somewhere. Setting up PTO, utilizing trainer and captain pay features. I see a lot of people still trying to do trainer pay by day or by week or by trainee or something like that. There's a lot of really awesome built-in opportunities to do training, to pay trainers additionally without any extra admin processes. So utilizing those trainer or captain pay features, turning on the employee portal, which is kind of a given, but that just gives them access to all of their information so they know where they stand as far as their KPIs are. Motivating technicians with their quality score. That's probably one of the biggest ones that they can see as far as their KPIs. So really harping in on that. And then pay for performance models. Something like the number of allowed hours that you work can earn you more money, no absences, no call outs, quality score. All of those can be used to create a pay for performance model. And then utilizing the consistency report to see which teams are consistent, which homes are consistent, and kind of seeing if there's a trend or a pattern where technicians aren't getting a lot of consistency that could lead to them turning over. And then the final thing that we like to talk about is our toolbox.maidcentral.com. This is where you'll plug in your core KPIs. I recommend doing this quarterly at the bare minimum, where you plug in all your core KPIs and pick one or two to work on for the quarter. In this example, the company has a technician turnover of 300% and looking to improve it by 50%. That would bring their annual revenue up $133,000 and some change, um, just by reducing their turnover because their sales are really healthy. They're just not having a good turnover number to maintain those sales numbers. So this is a really good tool to just kind of see the value of working on a specific KPI. If you go into toolbox.maidcentral.com and you plug in an improvement for your technician turnover and you're still seeing zeros over here, change one of these two numbers as well, or adding an improvement to average quotes per week and close rate per week. What that usually means is, sure, you can have more technicians, but it means that you don't have enough work for them. So if you're lowering your technician turnover and you're not seeing a positive change over here, you might also need to work on your sales side at the same time to improve the number of sales coming in for those technicians. Um, and yeah, went a little over, but I think that's everything. We have some other tools on toolbox.maidcentral.com, but yes, toolbox.maidcentral.com does need an account. It is not connected to your MaidCentral account, so it does need a separate login from your MaidCentral account. If you have any issues logging in, please reach out to MaidCentral support at support.maidcentral.com. You can do that whether you're a MaidCentral user or not, and you can use toolbox.maidcentral.com whether you're a MaidCentral user or not. And we highly recommend it. It just really helps you guys look and see what you need to be working on and help create kind of a quarterly planning process that highlights the areas that you can get the most improvement on in your business.
We love
Um,
predictable outcomes.
we love predictable outcomes. All right. Sorry for going a little bit over. I hope everybody has a great day and we'll see you next month for operating expenses.
Bye,
All right.
everybody.
Bye, everyone. If I know how to end this. There we go.